1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, side proposition claims they want to be inclusive and help everyone and be able to get them out of their struggles. But my point of information was important because it suggests the kind of roles that you give these people and ultimately the sets of people who you're going to be able to help. Take a look at the nature of these kinds of jobs. We're not talking about any low-hanging fruit, technical or vocational kind of job. We're skewing the narrative towards things which involve muscle and brawn and things which are largely hard labor. That is to say, the people in which they're going to help are largely going to be males, largely going to be people who can serve as beasts of burden to be able to carry a lot of these different things because they're correct. These people are not the most educated, and you're likely going to need people like construction workers or foremen or people who are going to literally do the grunt and dirty work of these infrastructure projects. That is where you box out a lot of the urban poor. People who are women, people who are artisans, people who do not have the capacities to be able to carry these different things because maybe they just aren't strong enough, or maybe these people may be disabled, etc. That is exactly where you box them out. I'll take you later. In a perfect world, we'd be able to give the poor people all of the different kinds of jobs and at the same time some sort of dole out and cash transfer. But in poor developing countries where this debate is likely to happen the most, we have significant scarcity and budget constraints in terms of what the government can do. This debate is about the prioritization in order to be able to examine through what primary lens of social policy should we do to be able to alleviate the urban poor from the struggles of social inequality. A few things on our side of the house, responses and framing will be integrated. Number one, it's fair to say on both sides, of course, they get money. On-side government, obviously you have to be able to be paid for your labor and paid for your wages for your work, but it's likely going to be less immediate. That is to say, no work, no pay. Or in instances where you do work, you're probably paid on a daily basis through minimum wage. On the comparative, on opposition, these cash transfers can be conditional or unconditional. Obviously, in the start, we're probably going to lean to more conditional kinds of transfers, which include but are not limited to the following parameters. A, proof of your dire and desolate situation, meaning you have to prove that you really need it so that people aren't just going to squander it or get it for the sake of getting it. B, receipts that the money you get are going to be used for basic necessities, things like education, medicine, and food, given Maslow's hierarchy of needs are proximate for the urban poor. And C, proof of effort to be able to improve your situation outside this aid. Meaning, we want this exclusively for those people who cannot find jobs or literally are in the bottom of society who need it the most. The second part of the framing is answering the question, what is the difference? I have a few differences here. A, cash transfers as a system are literally easier and cheaper to be able to set up. Because on both sides, the government has a budget, but on side proposition, there's a prerequisite of a necessity of these projects. That is to say, you're likely to concentrate these only in urban city centers where infrastructure projects are happening. You're building a road, you're building a highway, you're building a dam. But take a look in the Philippines, for example, a lot of things with flood control projects and government contractors tend to be exclusionary towards other provinces and rural areas. On the comparative, cash transfers, because of the rise of things like digital payment solutions and other forms of digital banking, are literally easier to cut across these particular lines. B, we think that these infrastructure projects are largely exclusionary, like I mentioned in my pre-oration, for those minorities, women, people who are disabled, people who do not have those particular skills. So contrary to what they mention, you help less people on their side when you make a prerequisite to be able to be that manual labor, something that you need in order to be able to get access to those resources. C is that it's actually harder to corrupt and misappropriate on our side of the house, primarily because, on your comparative, governments and their cronies of contractors are likely to use that system as a means to pay people less. That is to say, not only do you need a prerequisite of that project happening, you need a prerequisite of that project to be done well, which in many instances it's not, which is why those people get less cents on the dollar. Sure, I'll take your point of information. Faster, go.
Okay, so first, there's a large concession that all the people in today's debate are already marginalized. That cannot get contention. But secondly, you do not show how on your side the government is actually going to know all the people that need this cash, and you're going to say
I get what you're saying.
Like,
Firstly,
side.
yeah, it's too long, man. Firstly, obviously, on both sides of the house, we're making some marginal change. We're not saying this monthly dole out is going to significantly change their lives, but the flexibility that offers these particular people is greater because they actually know their dire situation. Bro, what if they don't want to work in infrastructure? What if they want to be able to be an artist or want to be able to pursue other kinds of passions? On our side, we have more flexibility. Moving on, right? D, it's quite important and immediate that these people get their help because we agree that they're in a dire situation. What if they have to pay for school tuition? What if they have to be able to pay rent? What if they have to be able to pay for some sort of travel to move to other kinds of places? That is to say, on our side, giving them that direct form of payment gives them more agency and access to take ownership over their life and not be contingent on your government projects, which, like it says, is temporary and likely to end. That is to say, on our side of the house, we're ultimately able to cast a wider net to be able to help people. And if your question is, bro, how do you know how to help them? These people can go to their respective regions and municipalities to line up for these particular dole-outs. In instances where the government doesn't know, it's easy to be able to tap local mayors and other electorates to be able to check. And for all of these reasons, we are very proud to open this debate from side negative. Thanks.